So Brian, why do we want to put the new foam in there instead of having like just gluing this piece back in?
Hey guys, Brian with the Seat Shop. Today we're going over repairing your foam cushion. So if we don't have a Durofoam cushion replacement foam where you can just throw the old one out, replace it with a brand new one, I'm going to show you how to actually fix your old foam, especially something like this is really beat up. There's no, you've got to do a lot of work on this to fix it back up before you put the new cover on. Otherwise, the new cover is not going to fit right. It's just not going to be right. It's not going to be good. So we gotta fix this. We need to have some blank foam in which to do your repair with. So just search online, find some upholstery foam, get a block foam. This is a 4-inch piece. We use that to carve in a big chunk here on the side and then kind of shape and carve some stuff. This is out of a 2001 Ford F-250 crew cab. You can see a huge chunk is missing out of this seat here. I'm going to show you the best way to do this. There's a couple things you'll need to tool-wise to be able to do this. One is a foam cutter. This is an actual foam cutter. It's just like a big jigsaw with a real long blade. But the typical thing you can use is an electric fish fillet knife, or just an electric carving knife. Thing you get at Walmart for 20 bucks. Those work great for doing the big block stuff. You can use a hot wire. You can just Google that, the hot wires, so you can cut some more minute shaving parts to it to really shape it. Then you can also sand it down to really get a perfect curve and all that kind of stuff. That's when you're getting really detailed. You don't have to get that detailed with this. It's foam. It's going to compress. When you put the new cover on it and wrap it around tight, it's all going to compress and smooth out fine. So you don't have to be Picasso with this stuff, but you got to get somewhat close. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. So we've got the seat removed. We have the foam here. We have the frame. We're going to start to kind of block out what we're going to do. And when I mean block out is, you can see this is an odd shape of what was missing. We need to cut all this into a square or a big rectangle. So all the edges are 90 degrees so we can cut it in a big block. So the tools you're going to need for that is going to be a foam cutter. This happens to be a long foam cutter. It's like a jigsaw with a real long blade. Or you can use just a electric fish fillet knife, electric carving knife you can get at Walmart, anywhere. Then you're going to need some adhesive. This is a 3M Super 77 for foam and vinyl and stuff. This works good. We also use a different spray foam, spray glue, contact adhesive. DAP Weldwood is the name of the glue, but DAP, D-A-P, and Weldwood is a great glue for if you want to get a sprayer and do it. That stuff's going to adhere really quick and it's going to set up fast, so you can continue working longer, quickly afterwards. This is going to take a little bit longer to set up and dry and cure real well before you can move on. So if you're gluing in new Velcro strips or something like that, something that's going to hold a load or have some pressure pull on it, you're going to want let this set up really well before you install something back on it, or it's going to pull back off. A good contact adhesive like the DAP Weldwood stuff, it'll adhere pretty dang quick. Within 5 minutes, you can move on. It's going to set up really quick. But this stuff works great. Any kind of spray adhesive works. As long as it's for foam or upholstery or vinyl, it's going to work great. So when your foam looks like this, usually there's probably going to be some kind of a problem with your frame as well. So there's some points to look at on your actual frame. So this is what the foam sits on. That's your base. It's got your springs and everything on it. There's a couple different things to look at. First thing I look at on these, I'll look at the springs. To see if they're all attached, see if they're still hooked onto this bar. If some of these wires have broken, typically if you see, there's maybe one or two broken, typically towards the door side. This would be towards the console. Here's your door. This gets the most friction getting in and out. If I have a couple of these wires that are broken, a lot of times I'll take this assembly off and I'll flip it over so the broken side's towards the console. I've run baling wire before. You can even run zip ties and loop them all the way across, and then I would run a zip tie to hold them in so they don't just slide off. So I'd zip tie around the end one you just made with one of the internal ones to keep them from sliding off. But I'll flip it over so I got the best side towards the door, because that's what's going to get the most strain. I also look at all the springs in the back where the holes are drilled in. You'll see it's more common than you'd think that these round holes will turn into a teardrop shape over time, where all the pressure is pulled on them and it's actually torn through the steel some. And so that's going to leave you with softer pressure down here because it's moved the spring in. At that point, I would just drill a hole either to the left or right of it, or behind it and hook it on there. You can also hammer down these tabs. So there's just a bunch of little metal piece tabs that are kicked up across the front. That's what holds it in. You can take the assembly off and you can hammer these things down a little bit. So that kind of pinches it down so that this rod here doesn't sit as deep in it. That'll also pull some extra tension into it. But just kind of, you need to just feel it. See if this, when you barely put any pressure on it, does it just bottom out like a freaking 50-year-old box spring mattress, you know, just bottoms out. It's terrible. This is pretty good. All the holes are good here. You also want to look to check the structural integrity of the pan itself. You typically will see some cracking on the corners. So I would look through here and see if there's any kind of fracturing through there on all the corners here. This one looks to be in good shape. It's not cracked, but anytime I've seen problems, it's usually been on the back corners through here. If you do see that, I just weld it back together. This steel is pretty decent. There's some other models that run some thinner lip metal, and you gotta really watch what you're doing and weld it because you'll blow a hole right through it pretty quick. But you can tack stuff back together. But this frame's pretty good. No structural damage. All the springs are good. The wires are good. I don't need to tighten anything up, but those are the things to look for before you continue on and build your seat back together. So now we'll start carving out foam for this for the repair.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff. So we're gonna square this thing off. I'm gonna use a loud saw here. All right, so we're just got a big blank here. So that way we can cut the new piece in, glue it in, and then we'll start kind of making small cuts to kind of shave it out. So let me just see if there's anything else I want to change on that. Flatten that out a little bit. Okay, so now I'll put this up. A general mark of how deep I need to come. Like that. Let's see now.
glove.
There we go. Okay. Let's see if I can do that. All right, so when I put this in, I'm getting a little gap here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna glue these sides in where everything's tight and flush there. So that will sit there. And then once that's dry, I'll come up here, I'll spray my glue through here, and I'll be able to bring that down and touch those two together. Once that's all there, then I'll start trimming this block down. So we're gonna take our glue, I'm gonna put some glue. There we go. This thing has a 2-stage trigger, so there's air and then glue. So I'm not adding glue this whole time, this is air.
Now you said with this, you don't have to let it cure at all.
That's why I blew a bunch of air on it for a little while.
Blow it.
And so this is a contact glue. So once you want to glue both sides, add glue to both pieces and then add this in, and within 5 minutes or so, this stuff's gonna be set up crazy hard.
And the Super 77, how long do you usually have to? These are more questions for me as well.
Yeah, but if I'm not gluing in a, like for stuff like this, I spray it on there and I'd hit it with I'd spray it with the air compressor, you get dry air on it. To tack up real well and then glue your pieces together. You can wait for something like this that's not getting a lot of weight and pressure on it. 10 minutes, you're all right. If you're re-gluing some like Velcro strips or something like that, that's gonna get some pull on it whenever you install the cover.
Yeah.
Man, I let a couple hours at least because I don't want it to come loose.
Yeah.
I did one the other day and I let it sit and I was hitting it with the compressed air for a while. 15 minutes or so, 20 minutes. I waited another hour, half hour or so, and tried it, and it pulled up. So then I left it overnight, came back next morning, and then glued it, and then glued it again, and let it sit overnight. It doesn't need to sit overnight in order to do it, but it needs longer than a half hour. This stuff here,
pretty quick.
Especially when you spray a bunch of air on it before you tack them together, you can do a Velcro strip, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Okay, that's pretty good there. Now I'm gonna spray underneath here. I'm gonna bring those together. Let me add some more glue into that thing. So I didn't put much glue in it.
Also allow for some good ventilation because this might send you straight to heaven. You know what I mean?
It's strong in here. It is definitely strong. Yeah. All right, so now we'll start carving stuff off. So whenever I put a block in and carve it, I usually will still cover this whole panel, this whole job, depending on how beat down the foam is, whether I'm gonna put 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch so foam over it as a full kind of big Band-Aid over the whole deal. Just think of like Bondo, you know, you finish the body job, then Bondo it all and then paint it. It's just kind of like you filled it in, now we're gonna put some Bondo over this whole thing, and then the cover is gonna be the paint. So we're gonna trim some of this off. It's not gonna look the best thing in the world. It's not gonna look like this side, but you're gonna have little peaks and valleys and stuff because this doesn't cut real precise stuff. You can get real precise if you want to with sanders and sand it down and really carve it real right, but you don't really need that on this type of a job for the contours that this seat is. So I'm just gonna start trimming. Dun, dun, dun. I'm gonna look down and kind of see the contour of the seat and see which way I need to go. Like I said, it didn't have to be pretty, because we're gonna put, probably just put 1/4 inch over this whole thing, and it's gonna smooth all out. Now the front, I've got where it's kind of coming to a flat stop here. I'm gonna spray that with glue, and then I'm gonna push in the bottom and pull the top forward, and it's gonna make a little soft landing there. It's gonna pinch down like that. So let's see the glue. Now, pinch it in and then roll forward.
The old pinch and roll.
The old pinch and roll.
Oldest trick in the book.
See that from here. On the bottom side of the foam, I noticed a lot of areas where it split from where the seat frame was, the seat pan was cutting into it. So I'm gonna just fill that with glue, put it back together.
So real quick, while Brian's spraying the foam, I was just gonna talk to you guys about our foam repair kits. So if there's a job where it's not necessarily a whole chunk of foam is missing, but you just have like a little piece that might be separated here, or you got a little tiny chunk that's pulled out right there, we've got some of our peel and stick foam repair kits to where you can shape this, cut it to size, whatever you need, peel off this adhesive back, and you can stick this on there. Especially the older the vehicle, sometimes we'll recommend to put, so we have 3 different sizes. We'll recommend that you might cover the entire face of your backrest foam or your bottom foam if the cover's kind of fitting. If you have a 20-plus-year-old foam and it's just super broken down and the steam's not helping you out, sometimes you might need to cover this entire face with some 1/2 inch foam. This just kind of makes it easier where you can just cut around it, peel off that back, stick it on there, cut out whatever you got to cut out, and there's your day. So
if you're adding a cover right over top of it, it's going to hold it in place. So, I mean, this isn't going to stick like this is going to stick, but that's going to stick pretty damn well to get on there. You don't have to go buy a $15, $18 can of spray adhesive. That stuff will work fine to put on there. So what I typically do on something like this is, instead of trying to carve a perfect little piece for it, I'd peel off, a larger section I would stick it down in there, roll it around so I covered the whole thing, and then I'd make some trim cuts to cut that piece off. But you can do it any way you want. But those are good for adding, if you need to add foam to the whole surface. So, you know, you get an old truck, especially like, gosh, 96 to 99 trucks,
yeah.
Chevy, you know, Suburban Tahoe, Yukon, Silverados. All those I start with a 1/2 inch foam on the full face of the seat. Bottom, we have foam for the bottom, so you usually put a new bottom on, but the top I usually put full foam on it. Tahoes, Suburbans, Silverados from 00 to 02, I fill those full. So just older stuff that's 20 plus years, I usually start with a full face of that on there. So if I were doing this whole piece, I would take this, I'd peel all that off, I would stick this whole thing down, and then I'd come back and I would trim out where all my attachment methods are, where all the Velcro is. You can feel through the foam and then come and trim it out afterwards. If you try to cut puzzle piece everything, it takes forever. You'll get better coverage if you just do a whole stick and then trim it out afterwards. So this is, I'm pretty happy with this gap being filled in. I want to put some 1/4 inch over this. I don't have any 1/4 inch peel and stick stuff, so I'm gonna take some 1/4 inch foam and I'm gonna fill this. I'm probably gonna fill this whole panel from here, this whole deal to here, this big L. Then when we put the cover on, we may see if it needs anything else, but I think this foam, the foam reacted pretty well to the steam. It puffed back up earlier when we steamed this thing out. I think it'll probably be okay. So I'm gonna put some we'll start with some 1/4 inch and go from there. So 1/4 over here. Yeah. So I'll start off by cutting a general shape so I'm not dealing with the whole tube of stuff here.
And we only got black. I don't want to hear anything about, oh, you got pink or you got blue. Or...
So now we're going. Ow. That hurt. Smacked right in the middle of my shin. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna shoot glue down on this flat part of the foam here, the sidewall, because I want to try to get that down in that pocket. So. Glue is thick. Okay, so there we go. Swap the wrap and stick this here. Film mark.
it's giving me flashback to paintball or something like that.
So I don't want to cover the Velcro, but I want to get it all the way down to the base. So I'm kind of walking my fingers down it and holding it. And then I'll come back out in a minute and trim that. Cut some of this out. Okay, now
So Brian, why do we want to put the new foam in there instead of having like just gluing this piece back in?
yeah, you could glue that bottom thing in, but like it's gonna be really hard to put a thin layer on top to try to kind of carve over it to try to get a right bell on the top. It's just, I don't know, it's just easier to, I find it easier and better because this stuff is starting to, it's gotten so much UV light on it.
Yeah.
The UV makes it crumble. You'll see the little yellow I call it dandruff, seat dandruff. You'll see the little crumbly balls. So as anything on top of that's gonna get friction on it, this stuff's gonna start to rubbing my finger over it, starts to crumble. It's just old and shot. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's better to block in a new piece that hadn't been degraded like that. Plus, it's really hard to put a small piece of foam on there and shave it to carve it to match up real well with the contour. Okay, so on the front.
Sorry, this is my second day off nicotine, so get a little contact over here, you know.
All right, so now I'm gonna bring this down. And this can come to a point. What I'm doing, then I'll cut
Trim
that
that.
and then glue it together for my seam. Look at all that. And good. Trim off here. I don't add any extra foam here where this is where the seat top frame meets up with the bottom. I don't want to add anything in the way there when you're doing that, so. Trash.
And also, like Brian said earlier, you can see here how he's been real careful about not covering up that Velcro, because if you cover up the Velcro and try to put the cover on, it's not going to sit correctly and it's going to look.
Yeah, it's gonna be baggy.
Not good.
So there we go. If you want to get a look at the angle down from the back forward, look at that. That looks pretty sharp. So here's what everything it takes to fix your old foam, to cut a chunk out, block it in, glue it, shape it, all that kind of jazz. It takes forever, and it's not going to be as good as something brand new. If we have a Durofoam cushion, it's so much faster and better, a better solution to get a new foam and drop the new foam on. If you were to take this to a shop and have a shop do it, they're going to charge you just as much in labor to try to fix and carve your foam. There's going to be just to buy a new Durofoam, drop it on the frame, and you're done. But if there's not a Durofoam out there, we don't have a mold for it, this is the next best thing on the way to fix your foam. Shop's gonna charge you probably an hour and a half of labor to fix your foam, which is basically probably about the cost of a Durofoam cushion. But you can do it yourself and save some money with this video, show you how to do it. But yeah, that's what's involved. So fixing foam.
Love it, yeah. And if you're driving an 01 Ford F-250, I mean,
yeah,
put some pride back in that truck, you know what I mean?
That's right. So, all right, we're gonna wrap this install up and start putting some leather on the side.